Hello, and welcome to another episode of Generally Speaking. I'm your host, Bill Lawrence. Please hit the like, subscribe, and follow little bell thing. So, what sorts of things we got going on today? I don't know if you remember, but Elon Musk was offering a lotto once, $1 million a day to these people that would give their personal information before the election to a position that he had his favorite candidate and was contributing a lot to that campaign. Well, this was an illegal activity. Campaign contributions, campaign influence under the impact of a lottery, and so he was going to be taken to court for this. But he tried to worm out of it by saying, "No, no, no, it wasn't a lottery. These people were already handpicked who we were going to give this money to." Well, that's made another lawsuit from the people who were told it was a lottery and participated, giving him all of whatever he wanted to know. And so he got hit if he was, he got hit if he wasn't. So Musk being sued. Here's a story about Florida Attorney General. It's actually a little bit on the old side, but I just came across it. And it turned out Florida made a law recently regarding illegal immigrants coming into Florida. And the essence of it all is that what Florida's law was about was determined by federal judges to be contrary to federal law, that they could not do that. And the feds told the attorney general, cease and desist, stop doing that. And so what did this fellow do? He told the people working under him, the law enforcing persons, don't listen to the judge. You keep doing it. I'm not going to allow some activist, unelected judge interfere with my implementation of Trump's policies. So this is the kind of people we have in the Republican world. Judge says something, they say, I'm not listening. And sadly, there's just so little can be done. I think contempt proceedings are the strongest you can go with it, but so many times I've heard about contempt and they go nowhere and nothing ever happens. But I just had to say, this is the attitude of them, and it's kind of the attitude becoming more and more pervasive. Law doesn't apply to me, it only applies to you. So, America, 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 the home of capitalism. I think we need a little different vision in this country, and we're slowly, awakening to that. And what I mean is, capitalism is the idea of just accumulating wealth. Essentially, that's the dream in life: get the wealth. No considerations for if there's anything negative that occurs in that endeavor. No consideration for is there anything else in life worth thinking about, like having a good life, having friends, having a clean environment. No, we need more concern about the general population, the welfare of everybody, and the structures, the infrastructure. We need more. Our electric grids, our power grids. They need more. I should say less centralization. I know there's a word for the opposite of that, but we need to have it that if one point gets blown up, we don't lose the whole city. We need more decentralization, I guess. And the same is true with our farms. We have too many huge corporate owned farms all sitting in this ideal farm country, and the something happens to them, everybody's screwed. We need more and more small local farms. That's my opinion. So the poster child for immigration efforts, Abrego Garcia, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the fellow that got sent to El Salvador into the prison, along with a couple of hundred other people, but he became the star because there was this constant fight about how you can't just pluck people off the street and send them, and he became the poster child. So, at any rate, he eventually came back from El Salvador. He got him back, and he's under trial here the administration decided to charge him with trafficking. That's taking people illegally, generally speaking, for sex work. And it's all just a trumped up charge. And any rate, they threatened Abrego with a deal that they would not prosecute him if he would be willing to just self-deport to Costa Rica. And if he did not, then they would just take him and send him to Uganda, like he knows anything about Uganda. So, at any rate, this is what they're holding over his head. Well, he had come back from El Salvador. He was in Maryland, I think, and he had to go to Tennessee where they were going to do this trafficking case, and he had to stop in at the ICE office to just say, yes, I'm here. And what did they do? They just kidnapped him again, and he's supposed to be hanging around here waiting for his trial on trafficking. But you know how ICE is, you get within 10 feet of them and they've got you, and they just whisk him away. Who knows where, who knows how long. Well, I guess they know something about it. And the judge hears about this, and knowing how the administration behaves, immediately puts out an order. This person, Abrego, is not to leave the United States. So she was talking to the administration lawyer. Do you understand? Am I making myself clear? And the lawyer says, yes, very clear. But of course, that doesn't mean anything. The administration does what the administration, feels like doing. And this reminded me of just another story I just recently came across about a young lady coming back from a honeymoon. She was came to this country when she was, I think, 8 years old. She was a Palestinian, but she's described as stateless, like she has no state. I don't know if that's what the condition is of all the Palestinians, that they don't have a state. I guess it would be when you consider there is no such place as Palestine, even though several countries have now said we recognize Palestine as a state, but I don't know what the geography is or anything else about it. At any rate, this young lady was stateless, and she's been in this country since she's 8, and it's not like nobody knew anything about her. She actually was in the system that she had to report to ICE on a regular basis, which she did year after year. They went to the same office, and the people there, came to know her. They see her every year. They see her growing up. They congratulate her on family affairs that happen. And at any rate, she got married, went on a honeymoon, comes back, and there's ICE, and they get her, and they take her, and she doesn't know what's going on. First, it's the questioning thing, at the airport in this separate room, and they won't tell her anything. These people never tell you anything. You ask a police officer, why am I being stopped? Won't say anything. Won't say anything. That's another law that should be placed. Authorities have to speak to you and tell you at least the minimum amount of information. So, at any rate, they take her, and they just keep moving her around. Where do they take her to a detention facility? But they don't tell her it's a detention facility. In fact, she's in this place, she's in this building. They give her a different set of clothes, prison clothes, but she doesn't even know where she is. And she asks people, they won't tell her. She's in a room with other people, none of them speak English. And they take her and they move her to another place. They move her to another place. She never has an idea of where she's even going. They don't let her call anybody. There's another thing that needs to be put in place. You should immediately be able to call people. So they move her there. They move her here. They move her the other place. Finally, they're moving her. They're putting her on a flight. Oh, where am I going? Yeah, sorry, we don't give out that information. It turns out she was going to be sent to Israel, where, of course, she would be put into Gaza, and you would never hear from her again. You know what happens in Gaza, you're dead. That's a lot of people aren't dead yet, but they're all almost Walking Dead, what's going on there. And it only happened that Israel had started its attacks on Iran, and this messed up with the system enough that the flight to Israel was canceled, and she ended back in this country where she is now again. But it was just another one of the many horror stories. I'm sure so many we don't even hear about the out of control ICE and the authorities, and just how out of control everything is becoming under this administration. And I'll tell you, I have nothing to do with people I know that voted Republican. I have nothing to do with them. I used to get my vitamins from a shop that I thought was the best vitamin shop I've ever seen. No more. I spoke with the owner, learned he's a Trumper, and now I go to some more generic place. I'm not as happy, but I won't buy any products from him. All right. So, Heather Winker, who is she? She's some police officer somewhere. And this is my other police story. I always get one in there if I can. This woman, I don't know, wanted to make a name for herself or something. So she fabricated some kind of a prostitution ring, a sex ring exists, and she was very elaborate in it. Got like some 30 girls involved, and was getting them prosecuted. But because it was all fabricated and there were so many weaknesses and holes in it, the girls were just let go, except for two that I don't know what happened to hold them up, but they ended up going to jail because they were guilty. No, pending the next step in this development of following what's going on with this prostitution ring, which eventually it turned out that they were set free because it was evident that this woman was lying about everything. Now, as horrendous as this story is, which is sort of what made me, mention it, the worst part of it is that this officer is still working. The policing system, I'm saying, really needs another element to get bad police and at least get them out of the system at the least, but they should be punished. All right. So, Trump, and the dollar and countries that are moving away from the dollar. He wants to punish this. He doesn't want this de-dollarization. And what's he doing? The opposite of what would accomplish his goals. He's throwing tariffs on everybody, throwing fights at everybody, and doing things like withholding funds in American banks that countries that have dollars in American banks. So, I mean, people are just saying, why am I having anything to do with the dollar? So, right now, two of the biggest world's economies, Russia and China, they now deal with each other totally with ruples and renminbi. That's the Chinese money, the renminbi. And so, no more dollar there. And now the BRICS people, especially Brazil and India, they're getting away from the dollar. They want to just deal with local currencies, and they're talking about creating some new kind of currency. I guess sort of along the lines of how the Europeans invented the euro. It's a tricky business. The Europeans were all very nicely integrated before the euro happened, being all so close to each other. But that was still a complicated affair. And now the BRICS countries is spread all over the planet, and they haven't been so tightly together. So, but it can definitely happen. I think it will happen someday. So the Federal Reserve Board, the people who set the interest rates, um, Trump wants the interest rates reduced because he thinks that'll reduce prices on things. It'll make money flow easier. Things will go better. And from what I've heard, that sometimes it does work in the short term, but then it makes inflation go up incredibly. At any rate, he wants it. He knows best, and he wants it reduced. And he found one of the board of governors to have some kind of issue with a home loan they applied for some years ago, calling their home a primary residence, which gives you preferential tax treatment. If you have a primary home, you don't get taxed as much as if you have a rental home or a second home. And she had claimed two homes as her primary. So don't know the details, but this is nothing to affect her job as the Federal Reserve Board. But he just fired her. And again, one of the things he can't do, so many things he can't do, and he just does. And me, I've always wondered, if someone says you're fired, then they have no right to fire you. I mean, then how can you even say they're fired? You can't say I'm fired. You're not the person who says I'm fired. Why doesn't some person just come off the street and say you're fired? What does that make me fired? No. And if so, you're the president. All right, you're still not someone who can say I'm fired. So, you know, I don't understand why all of those people that got fired by Trump, I don't understand why they walked off their jobs. They should just stay there and say, well, you're just someone saying I'm fired. It doesn't mean anything. Well, at any rate, this young lady, she's taken to court. She says, oh, I'm not going anywhere. I'm taking this to court. And we'll see how that goes because court always ends up being the Supreme Court, which all too often just says whatever Trump wants, that's what he gets. But sometimes the issues are such that even the court can't just say, "Okay, Trump." I guess it gets too egregious, or I don't know what. But from what I understand, the courts will let her stay. But we'll see about that. All right. Another thing. This is silly. I might or I may. Um, these are two different words, and it bothers me when people use them wrong. Might means it could happen or it could not happen. May means you're allowed. You may do something. So get it right, people. All right. So that's might and may. And all right. I like to get a cop story in every now and then. I also like to get a religion story in every now and then. The back to Texas. There are some states that are always the ones you go to for the religious stories. So the Texas Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick is in the Senate. They're having Senate meeting discussions, business, taking care of business. And they always like to have this thing called an invocation. I don't even know what invocation means, but it's where someone stands up and says something regarding the Lord. They say something about it. Well, these meetings are publicly available. They've got a gallery sitting at the side somewhere. People can sit in and watch and listen, see how our government works. And they're giving the invocation, and some people stand for the invocation, some people don't. Well, this upset Dan Patrick very much, and at the end of the invocation, he said, "I noticed some people weren't standing. That is the height of unrespectableness. I've never seen such a thing in all my time, and it will never happen again. I want you to know if anybody doesn't stand next time at the invocation, they will be kicked out." Okay, that's what he's saying. Uh, Another one of those people who says things that they can't say. I mean, they can verbally say it, but they can't do it. It's illegal. So right away, you get the usual parties like the Freedom from Religion Foundation sending him a letter warning him you can't say that. And if you do try to enforce that, there will be more actions forthcoming. So it kills me. I'll let a person be religious, do what you want to do, but don't start getting vicious with it. Don't start pushing yourself on me. I'm not religious. I think you must get that by now. And the stuff, it's always Texas or Oklahoma, those two especially, but there are several other states and Louisiana. And any rate, that's what they do. So stand for the invocation. All right. So I was watching a discussion between Jordan Peterson and some other pro-Israeli person, and wondering, how do people, come to support the Palestinians being, how does anybody support the evil Palestinians? How can they go out there and say stop the genocide? And so, that's what Jordan is asking this fellow. And he says, well, it's those radical woke progressives, in infecting them, getting paid by foreign agents. And I love, the descriptions, because descriptions sometimes are appropriate in terms of, well, it was a white guy, it was a black guy, you're saying something real. But when you get radical, woke, progressive, which I mean, there might be something to that, but those are more for emotional things, radical, woke, progressive, and that's the emotional content. And so that I just thought was funny. All right, what else? I saw a story about police in Kenya and about how there was a lot of protests going on, and the protests had been escalating. Police were being sent out frequently, and it came to a point where the police were being told to shoot the protesters. I mean, in the legs. Like, oh, well, that's okay, in the legs, right? Which is something Trump suggested, but any rate, the long and short of it, police refused to. They put their rifles down, and I thought, wow, now that is something. We're finally, the gun toters, you know, get an emotional or an ethical or moral, sense, and they won't do that. And I imagine the legislatures, those are the ones that are all powerful. They can say, oh, you're going to protest people? We're going to send the police. Oh, and then the police say, no, we're not. And now here's the legislature sitting in their desks looking at each other. Huh? What? What? What now? We don't have any power now. And they tried to backtrack it, saying, no, 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 we didn't say that. We didn't say that. But I just thought it was amazing that they laid down their guns. They wouldn't do it. I'm wondering if that's going to happen in this country because now we're having soldiers in this country, and there's not even any riots. And we got the soldiers out here. We got the military. This is really getting frightening. Um, so, um, yeah, getting frightening. ICE imitators. Now we're hearing more and more stories of people buying those ICE looking uniforms, getting bulletproof vests and putting the masks on, getting a little tin badge around their neck, and then trying to knock on doors saying, ICE, we're investigating something, and then they go and kidnap people or they rob them, they arrest them. And this is becoming more and more frequent. This is more the doings of our wonderful Republican administration. Last thing, flag burning. Trump just signed legislation, not legislation, his executive order, which is not law by any means. And I was watching something about that, how it's not law, and I'm wondering, well, what are they? If you make an executive order and it's not a law, what is it? Is it just guidance, or is it saying, listen, I want you to do this, and it's something that's not a matter of legal or illegal. It's just this is the way I prefer it. I prefer from now on we'll put our spoons on the right side of the plate and our forks on the left side of the plate. I don't know if it's something like that, but he was saying you can't burn the flag now, and again, more of his just doing whatever he wants to do. So bad deal all around. Well, there you go. I think this might have been one of my shorter ones. Thank you for listening. I always love people listening to me. I hope you have a wonderful day and your life is going every way you could ever want it to. Bye now.